guys, it's Lindsay here, being really awkward as I set my camera up. I am hoping that it's not upside down. I'm going to check it in my, there we go. I hope we're right side up. Let's see. Guys, if you're watching the replay, I'm just going to go right ahead and say skip a couple minutes into the future because I'm live. According to YouTube, I'm live. Oh, I'm so rusty, guys. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay. All right, we're in frame. Oh my goodness. Hello, friends. Hey, Joe's in the house. Melissa, hello. And Danielle is here, and so is Diane and Paulo. Oh, wonderful. Hello, friends. Can you guys hear me? If you'd let me know, that would be so fantastic. Because it's been a while and I'm feeling rusty. I thought it'd be fun to do our World Watercolor Month prompt today together. So if you guys are doing that, please let me know in the chat. I think that would be really fun. And oh, good, you can hear me. Wonderful. All the kids are actually out of the house right now, so we should have full bandwidth and full internet, and hopefully everything will be good. Oh, I want to let you know that if you're a member in Critique Club, that this project is currently up. Actually, I'm just going to move my chat window over to the side to make sure I can see that. Oh gosh, maybe I can't. Never mind. Hopefully this is in frame. Maybe I can just minimize that. Oh my gosh. There we go. So this project is up in Critique Club right now, a real-time version of it. It's over 2 hours, but there will be a time lapse on Sunday. So you can look forward to that. The time lapse will be on YouTube. This real-time one is in Critique Club right now. I don't think anyone's found it yet, so I thought I would just mention that right here. And we're going to work in a watercolor sketchbook. This was actually made by my friend Rosie out of Arches Paper. She does not make them to sell. So if you take like a number 12 sheet and use half of it, you should be about the right size. And I thought it would be fun to use the new synthetic travel brushes that I bought. These here, I got them, I think they're about $15 for the 3 on Amazon, and I got it because it had a number 12, and I really like the Cheap Joe's one that I have that's a number 12, but the Cheap Joe's one is much bigger. I really like that one, but I thought for a budget one, it'd be fun to try. I've also got some of my creative marks here. And I have the reference photo that we're using linked up. I'm using Paul Rubens watercolors, and that's what I have down these two sides. I actually put them in this foam style palette because I really like these wells. And I took the pink palette that the Paul Rubens pans came in, and I put the Paul Rubens floral colored tubes in that one. So that's why it's in a weird palette. But the Paul Rubens paints are actually there's a $10 off coupon today on Amazon for the 24 set. So if you've been looking at them, if you've been interested in that, that's a pretty good price, because that would be like $30 for the set of 24, which is a pretty nice deal. All right, and you can sketch with a color pencil or a graphite pencil, whatever you want. I'm just going to use a terracotta color pencil here. And today's prompt for World Watercolor Month is effervescence. And so I thought it'd be fun to paint kind of like a bubbly drink. So that's what we're going to do. And I wanted to mention about another brush, because I had purchased them and they said they were faux fur, and one of my viewers who's a veterinarian, or she works in a vet lab, she looked at the fibers under a microscope, and that was the ones that the water brushes, the Sumi-E water brushes, and she says she's pretty sure they're animal hair. So I apologize for recommending those, and that's just kind of a bummer. So, but these are definitely Golden Taklon synthetic brushes here. So, all right. Now I'm going to move my chat over again so I can see my reference photo. We're going to start by let's just start by drawing a square, really light, okay? I'm going to draw it a little bit darker so that you can see it, hopefully. And I'm going to give it just kind of like a little bit of a curved edge. And I'll periodically look at the chat, but I want to get going here just so I don't waste anybody's time here that's come for the tutorial. You guys feel free to chat with one another. neat thing about this this glass is that it's got a really thick bottom, which I just think looks kind of cool. It's just something kind of interesting. So we'll draw that curved line there to represent the bottom of the glass where it's a little bit thicker. I'm going to sketch in some ice cubes. This terracotta, this is a great color. This is a Prismacolor Call Erase, and these are available individually, or you can get boxes of 12 of the same color, or you can get an assorted box of 12 or an assorted box of 24. I've never used one all the way down. I usually just try to grab a color that is similar to what I'm going to draw. But the terracotta actually works with almost everything. So if I had to pick one color, I'd probably either do the terracotta or I would do the brighter red, just because I like red underdrawings. But the terracotta is a nice safe bet. But I like having the multitude of colors, because then they kind of disappear once you add your watercolor over, which is nice. And I like them under alcohol marker because they're not waxy enough to hurt your markers. I'm drawing some ice cubes in here. Yeah, some more over here. I love summertime fruity drinks. They're so pretty. And let's put, looks like there's actually, I think they're peppered. I'm not sure what this drink is, but it looks like there's peppers scattered around them in the reference photo. But I think I'm gonna put like it looks like it would be like a cosmopolitan, although not in the right glass. It looks like it might be cranberries in there. So that's what I'm gonna think it is. And then I'm not sure what the green stuff is in there, but I'm just gonna draw some mint, because I think mint would be nice. Nice and refreshing. And of course, I'm just kind of doing my own little flair here. Oh, I should make that one smaller though, because that's too similar. The eraser I like to use when I'm erasing on watercolor paper are these white plastic ones, and you can get these at even the dollar stores. Mars Factus makes a nice one as well, if you're buying a name brand one. But honestly, any of the white plastic erasers at the dollar store usually work really well, so you don't have to spend a lot of, well, not they're expensive anyway, but you don't have to spend more than $1 if you don't want to. And then we got a piece of pineapple on the edge of the glass. You can change that to a lemon if you prefer. You are your own bartender, friends, in your fantasy art world. All right, I'm just gonna take a quick peek, see if anybody has any questions. I see one right there. Oh, and if you have a question, make sure you put the word question in all caps, so it'll catch my eye, hopefully. Alexa wants to know, she has white Nights watercolors, and I've noticed all my paintings look dull. Am I overmixing? That could be a factor. It could also be that your paper doesn't have a lot of sizing in it. Like some papers will just automatically look duller. For instance, I noticed like the Canson Heritage, which is a beautiful paper, especially if you like granulation effects, for whatever reason, I feel like my paints look dull when I paint on that paper. But yeah, if you are mixing, try going with fresh paper to the fresh paint to the paper and letting it mix on the paper, and you might get a much more vibrant color. I'm just going to scroll back for questions real quick, and then we're going to move on. I think we are caught up. Awesome. And I'll make some little breaks for questions later too. Okay, I don't think I'm going to put any little doodads around the glass right now, but I'll probably add something in later. And I did draw this with a little bit of a curve, so I'll probably just bring the back of the ellipse in there as well, just so I have a little bit of dimension there. And I think that's going to do it. Now, the prompt for World Watercolor Month today is effervescence. And so, I mean, I just kept thinking of, like, you know, when you pop a soda can open or a seltzer, and just because you get that fizz, that burst of fizz, that's kind of what I was thinking. And I want to have a very effervescent style. So I'm going to start with some spatters. And I get asked about spatter and how I get that signature spatter look and how it doesn't go completely bonkers and out of control. And my key is to spatter water first. And then you can see how the water is going to fall. And then if there's areas where you want more spatter, just kind of dab your paintbrush with water and connect some of those areas. And then you can control kind of where your splashes will be when you go and you add the you add the color to it. Now I like the idea of like maybe the bartender just slid that down the counter to his patron and it just kind of maybe splooshed out of the side. I like the thought of that. So I'm actually adding a little more water up here. And this is going to be kind of like cranberry color, kind of like Cosmopolitan or a Shirley Temple, something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and give the below the water line here where I think the beverage is going to be. I'm going to just paint some water. And I'm only going to add water to, other than my splashes, just above that thickness from the bottom of the glass. So if I tip my paper in a second, you should be able to see where things have been wet. So I don't know if that's, if you can see the glossiness. Hopefully you can see that little bit of glossiness there. All right, now I'm just going to go right ahead and try out these brushes. I got them on Prime Day. I think I paid around $12 or $13. I think they're $14 today, but they fluctuate. I'm going to grab a nice cool red, kind of like a crimson or rose madder, anything like that. I'm going to add a little bit of mauve or violet into it just to get it a little bit. Look at that. See how it's a little bit more cranberry color now? I'm just going to shift it a little bit there. And I'm going to start just by putting some of that down here in the bottom of the glass. Now this is pretty weak. I'm just going to trace the edges, and if it hits some of the water and splashes out, that's totally fine. That's kind of what I wanted to do. Now I think I'm going to use a little bit of just the red on its own, but watered down. And just kind of let it be really watery. Now I'm not sure if I can really splatter with this because it is kind of not a really juicy brush. Yeah, I think I'm going to want to grab one of my Mimics because they're a more absorbent brush and they'll spatter a little bit better. I'm going to spatter into my drips, and then I think I'll take some of the mauve on its own. And you can actually touch that into your spatter and it will only go where the paper's wet. So that's how you can kind of control where your spatter is going to be. And we have all these little dots up here. I like those dots that I made with just the water spatter. So I'm just going to touch my brush in there and fill those little dabs, those little water splashes with some color. And I like that mauve color, but I think I'm going to grab this one of these travel brushes. Make sure the sizing is rinsed out. And I'm going to take the mauve color and add that to the bottom of my glass here. Just in the bottom of where the liquid is. And maybe up on the edges a little bit. And this brush here is the number 8, which actually I would say is more like a number 5. And I would say the 12 that's in the set is more like an 8. So just for your point of reference, like this is a 12 Mimic, and that's the 12 from that travel brush set. And I think the Cheap Joe's 12 is a little bit fatter even than the Mimic, but it doesn't have quite, I don't think the hair is quite as long on it. All right, we're going to grab some lemon yellow. Just going to add that to our pineapple slice. Give it a kind of a base coat here. You can also splash on some of the yellow. Now just keep in mind, if you splash on top of the purple where it mixes, it's probably going to go a little brown. So if you want, you could just pick up the color and you could like, whoops, I had water in my ferrule. You could just kind of dab it into some splashes that don't have a lot of purple in there. I like to splash with my mix though, because they're just so much more absorbent. Now I'll just try to like kind of keep it a little bit separate from the other colors. And then as this dries, we can go and add some of these colors to the glass, because the glass will reflect and refract all that light. So that gives us a really pretty effect as well. Now I want to do the mint. I'm going to give it a little bit of yellow since it's right on my brush. And I don't want to waste it. I'll go back to our travel brushes since I really want to use these. I'm going to use a sap green. I intended to buy that 48 set of Paul Rubens paints when they were on sale a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was a week ago, and they were sold out before I got around to it. So I was kind of bummed. The 48 color has, the 48 set has some additional color, but you know what? I think I probably have those colors in tubes anyway, so probably just as well. Now mint has a little bit of a, not really a serrated edge, but it's got a little bit of a fluted edge, so I want to put a very, very subtle fluted edge. Lean B asks if I let my travel brushes dry before I put the caps back on. No, I don't. I put them back on wet. They should have a little bit of a, yeah, they have a little ventilated hole in the end. And I've never had a problem. But then again, keep in mind, I only have synthetic brushes. So if you have real, if you prefer animal hair brushes, you probably want to let them dry out, because that probably would make them tend to mildew maybe, because it would be a natural product, even with a bleed hole. But that one, I mean, I don't know if you can see down the camera, if you can see through it, but it's got a little hole in the end that I can see through. I can see through. I can't blow air through it though, so it's not a very big hole. And I find it so much easier to put them back in when the bristles are wet, because then you've got they stick together a little bit better, so you don't have to worry about damaging them, because you do want to be careful when you put the caps back on that you don't split the bristles. Very good. I love the sharp point on this though. It's really nice. I wouldn't trade it for my cheap Joe's pseudo sable, but you know, I'm kind of afraid to take that places just because it's my favorite travel brush. But it's like, if I'm afraid to travel with it because it's so precious, then it doesn't make very much sense, does it? I'm gonna get some of this green in the spatters too. Seeing if I can sneak it into any little splashes. Don't have any, but I think I'm just gonna have to splash some. Oh, Christina has a good question. How do you remove paint from a half pan? Well, I gotta tell you, unless it's like really awful crappy paint that I just want the half. I bought, like, I have, like, back in the day, the tins of watercolor were expensive. To buy an empty tin, it would be cheaper to buy a palette that that had crappy paint in it and just get rid of the paint. And in that case, a lot of times all you had to do was let it dry, was just kind of let it just dry out and then just pull it out, because they would kind of shrink away from the sides. But if I poured it in from a tube, I generally don't, because it would take a lot of work. I would try to use it up. You could soak it and then you know, scrape it out, but I think that would be a lot of effort. I have done that accidentally, like filled up a palette and then realized I didn't like the paint. And ironically, it was with the student grade Paul Rubens tubes, which I don't like, which is such a shame because they have the pretty excellent set. They make that one. That is such a wonderful student grade set. It's like, why mess with anything else? Now, their paints do dry down great. Their student paints dry down great, but it's like, man, your artist paints aren't that expensive. Why come up with a student range it isn't that, doesn't reflect well on your brand? I don't understand that, because their artist grade paints are like Cotman prices pretty much. Now, what I'm doing there, I blotted out some ice cubes, and I also kind of used my rag here to dry up some of the extra moisture in my splashes. Otherwise, we'd be here all day waiting for the splashes to dry. And if any of your splashes seem too bright to you, remember they will dry lighter, but if you don't like them, or a color mixed and you don't like it, you can go and blot it. Oh, Christina, you have them in a palette and it dried out. Yeah, I've soaked them and just kind of used a palette knife to scrape them out, but you got to be careful that you don't poke through the palette, because those a lot of times your palettes are a little thinner than like even a half pan. So yeah, I guess just kind of soak it and scrape it and hope for the best. All right. I think I do want a little more color in my spatters. I'm going to go in, I'm just going to drip color into the wet area. I like how this is kind of connected into the drink. I like to let the paints kind of sit wet on the paper, because then you get the nice texture and granulation. And I've linked up all of my supplies in the video description if you're curious about any of the things that I'm using. And also there's a link to the reference photo, which I'm sure Christina appreciates, because she's usually the one that has to tell me to link up my reference photo, because I always forget. Ooh, I like this bright red. I might have to go with some bigger splashes somewhere though, because I feel like I've got a little bit too much uniformity in my splashes. You'll draw this one a little bit more. It looks so effortless, guys. It's like figure skating. You never know the work that goes into the splashes. Ooh, Amy got her daily sketch done. I have had such a fun time following the prompts. Angela Fair did the prompts this year for World Watercolor Month. She did a great job. Really made me think. A lot of them have really, they haven't come effortlessly. They've been definitely head scratchers. Today's prompt is effervescence, and you can find a full list of the World Watercolor Month prompts over on the Doodle Wash website, and also on the Doodle Wash Instagram. But if you just search World Watercolor Month, they'll come up. Now, something else I think I'm going to do right now, because there's so much wet paint around, I think I'm just going to drag some of it into the glass and get some of my tones that will be reflected in the water or in the glass done right off the bat. If you're interested in learning how to paint glass, I do have a glass class over on my Teachable School. I do have that linked up if anybody's interested in the video description. I love to paint glass. It's my favorite, one of my favorite subjects, glass and rocks. I don't know why exactly, but those two subjects just constantly intrigue me. All right, I need to get a blue into the mix, and I think I want to go with something like a cobalt or an ultramarine. I think I'll do cobalt just because my ultramarine's getting awful low in this palette, so I think I'm going to show cobalt some love. And I am going to very gently, I'm actually going to turn my work here. Hopefully it stays in frame. And I'm going to put my hand, so this is all wet, so I don't want to lay my hand in it, and I have a tendency to do that, to kind of like brace my arm to get it steady. So if I put my arm on the other side of the sketchbook and I put my hand my arm in my hand, I can kind of make myself a little painting bridge, and that will help me make my nice straight line. Or I just need to trace that edge basically. And then I'm going to pull some of that blue down. And it looks really bold right now, but don't worry, it'll work itself out. Get some of that in the bottom of the glass as well. Now I don't follow reference photos slavishly, because the more you paint, the more you can anticipate how things would react, how glass would react in different lighting situations. This painting has a black background, and my watercolor paper has a white background, and I don't feel like doing a dark background. I wanted this to be light because effervescence is the prompt, so I wanted to stay light and fresh and effervescent. What a great word. And I can get some of those blues in my spatters. And here I'm actually just painting on some spattery shapes. I really can control it that way. Wow, 192 people here right now. This is crazy. I am so glad you guys came over on such short notice. YouTube changed the whole upload thing, so I don't know how to schedule live streams anymore. And plus, I find in this season of my life, I'm much better at if I'm like less scheduled. Kind of take it every day as it comes. I'm taking a little burnt sienna, and I'm going to add some details to the pineapple. I'm actually going to turn this so I don't lay my hand in it. And I'm just going to add those little, oh, what do you call it? I got some blue in there. I don't know, fibery marks on a pineapple. I do like the green in there from adding that blue, so I think I'm actually going to add some of that sap green because I like that green better, and I think it would be a little bit more fresh on my pineapple, so maybe just a little bit of, could do a little bit on the outside like it's the rind, like there's a little bit of rind on there. It's probably a little too much rind. We'll blot that. Actually, I can take a little bit of, oh, I'm trying to use these other brushes. It's a creature of habit. I love my mimics, so I keep going back to the mimics. Take a little bit of red. Actually, I'll take it off the pan because it's too thin. A little bit of warmer color in there. All right, maybe a little bit of detail on our mint. By the way, this is the number 4, which I would say is much more equivalent to a number 2. So they seem to be about two sizes off what I would typically say a color would be. So I'm going to take the sap green because I've already used it. I'm going to take the cobalt blue because I've already used it. Now, typically, you wouldn't use a blue like cobalt if you want to make a bright green. You'd choose a green like a Prussian blue or a cerulean blue or a phthalo blue if you wanted to make a nice dark green. But if you've already used a blue and you've got a sap green, I would just use the blue you've already used because you're going to have more harmony in your painting. But if it was like, if you're going from scratch and you were just trying to make a bright green, you'd want to go with a blue that already leans green. But this is the reason I'm not doing that. Plus, I really don't want a super, super bright green. I want it to be a little bit earthier and more natural looking. Jim says he's retired, so his whole life is impromptu. I love it. Now, sometimes you have a delicious area where your colors are blending. I don't want to get rid of all of that, but I do want to give a little bit of hint of detail. So I'm going to make sure I leave some of those soft edges. I finished up my Brute Fooner 520 pencil review today, and I'm gonna have to watch it back because I'm kind of afraid that I might have been a little too critical. I don't know. I'm gonna have to watch it back to see. lot of people have been like chomping at the bit for that review. I've been working with them all week to get it ready. And one thing about these brushes is that they can feel a little bit, well, yeah, they kind of feel a little jiggly in there. I guess they're not in danger of coming off, but something feels a little bit jiggly when I'm, if I hold it. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm just imagining that. As soon as I set it and I want to reproduce it, I didn't do it. All right, I'm going to use the red on its own for the cranberries. If you get the red into your green, you're going to get mud, so just try to avoid them if you can. And if your drink area is still wet, you'll get a little bit of a blend like I am here, but I like that. I like those little soft edge surprises. So it's up to you. If you don't like that, let it dry. But I think it's kind of nice. I like that. And this is Arches paper, so it stays wetter longer because of the amount of sizing, which is basically like a coating that's put on the paper that prevents your paint from soaking in too quickly. Now I want to put a couple cranberries on the table. So I'm going to make one in the middle of the spatter because I kind of like the idea of it kind of swooshing into the spatter. I'm doing the other one over here. I'm going to cover up that yellow because I don't really like that yellow splash right there. You can leave a white highlight on them, or you can go in later with a pen, or you can just leave it however it comes. The great thing about World Watercolor Month or any of these monthly challenges is that you've got a brand new do-over every single day. So you don't have to be precious about any of your paintings. Oh, I like how that one's just kind of splashing in. There. I think 3 will do it. I might do some little sprigs of mint on the table as well, but I can think about that. All right, I'm gonna see if there's any questions. Well, I'll let this dry for a second. Actually, let me see if there's anything I want to do before it dries. Yeah, I think I'll dry this, and then while it's drying, I'm gonna look for questions. And I'm going to scroll back a little bit. Okay, I just saw Christine's question, so hopefully there weren't any before that I didn't get to. Just remember, if you have a question, to type the word question in all caps so I will see it. Or Joe might see it and answer it, or somebody else might help you out too. Diane is asking, what were the pencils again? They are Prismacolor Col Erase. I'm sorry, I forgot to link those up. But it's Col, C-O-L-Erase, E-R-A-S-E. It's made by Prismacolor. They're about, they're not that expensive. I would say about $1 a piece. So like, actually, I think a box of 12 might be around $6 on Amazon, and a box of 24 might be about 12. They're very affordable and they erase beautifully. However, I do recommend that you use a white plastic eraser as opposed to the eraser on the end, because sometimes those pink erasers will stain your paper, especially like watercolor paper. Created to bless is my watercolor creations make her drool. I like to paint food. Rhonda's asking if I like the brush. These, I assume you're meaning these new travel brushes? Yeah, I like them fine. They're like your typical tack-on brush. They're very pointed, so if you like a pointed round, they're nice. They kind of remind me of the, I don't know if Lowell Cornell still makes them, but they had a pointed round that they used to sell that was very similar to that. It is very similar to the Cheap Joe's Pseudo Sable, except they're smaller than what the Cheap Joe's ones are. So like my favorite Cheap Joe's one is the number 12 round travel brush, and the number 12 in this set here is equivalent to an 8. So it just depends if you like a big brush. I like a really large brush. It comes to a sharp point when I'm out painting, like in the kayak and stuff, because then I don't need to carry a bunch of brushes. I just bring the one and I can do all my sizes. All right, I'm just gonna slide through, see more questions. Christina asks, is the Dstl watercolor stick as good as a tube? I think it is. That's what I have right here. I really recommend the Daniel Smith watercolor sticks if they have it in the color you want, because they're priced all the same at about, I think about $8.50, under $9 anyway, on like Blick has them. I'm not sure if Jerry's carries them. Way cheaper on those sites. Anytime you're going to buy a single tube or a single stick or anything like that, a single of something, you're going to be way cheaper at Blick or Jerry's or maybe Cheap Joe's. They check all three places. But sets are usually cheaper on Amazon. But yeah, I find the sticks to be just like a panel watercolor. They're wonderful. I'm just looking for questions, guys. Bear with me. Rose Quinzel asks, I know cold press, hot press, and rough watercolor paper, but what is soft watercolor paper? Soft press is a watercolor paper made by Fabriano, and it's in between hot press and cold press. So it's got a little bit of texture, not as much as cold press, and you know, more than hot press. Oh, and Joe actually already had that answer. Oh, if I miss any, then just pop them in the next time. Rhonda says, question bubbles, please. Oh, I think she wants me to make some bubbles. Yeah, I'll have to do some on the glass, I think. Maybe some condensation bubbles. Okay, I think we're caught up. Awesome. All right, so as you can see, the paint's a little bit duller now that it's dried down. It always dries a little bit darker. So something I want to do is add another layer onto the glass. And I want to do a couple things. I want to add a little bit more blue. I love the granulation on the cobalt blue there. It's very pretty. I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna and the cobalt blue, and I'm going to make myself a gray. So the cobalt will essentially work like ultramarine. Cobalt is generally not as pigmented. It's generally a little bit softer of a color. And when you have student grade paint, oftentimes a cobalt blue, it's a hue, which means it's not the real McCoy. And what they do is they just take the ultramarine pigment and they add white to it. Actually, Winsor & Newton Cotman used to use real cobalt in their Cotman line, but I think they stopped that like early 2000s. I think they had to stop it for British sale before that, and then they just stopped it everywhere. Which is really a shame, because if you're using your paint as directed, it really shouldn't create much of an issue. But I think there was stricter rules in the EU. I'm just bringing down some little streaks of blue. Now this looks a little crooked to me, so I'm going to open it up in the back a little bit because I feel like I've got that tipping down. But look at this nice razor point on this brush. Not that I needed any more brushes, but I did want a cheaper travel set, so. The want monster had its way. I like to have a little bit of toning in the glass just so it stands out from the background a little bit. And if we have a little toning on the glass, when we go in, if we want to do any like highlighting, if we want to use a white gel pen or a color pencil or something, then we'll have that contrast that we need. This palette is so jiggly. I think it's the thumb ring on the bottom of it. Should put a mat underneath it or something. I'm going to bring in some of those shapes from the bottom as well, some of those streaky shapes. right, now I also want to kind of paint around the ice cubes a little bit. I'm still using that medium size number 8 brush. I haven't noticed any hair loss in the brushes, which is good. I'm doing a red and mauve mixture. Oh, we got a question here. To make a water brush with an empty watercolor brush, could you use tube water or does it have to be liquid? So I think she means if you take like a, if you're gonna take a water brush and turn it into a like a liquid filled, but I got one right here I can show you actually, like one of these guys. You could use tube paint really diluted. You're better off to use an ink though, like a watercolor ink, just because of clogging. Like even like the ones that have mica in them, I find that they will clog and they can be a little tricky to work with. So I would recommend using a liquid watercolor, and actually I would recommend using a dye watercolor, kind of like Dr. P.H. Martin's Radiance, or there's some really nice kids liquid watercolors that work really well. Now notice I'm just kind of carving around my ice cubes here. Blick makes one. It's like, I think it's just called Blick liquid watercolor. There's also one called Color Splash, and I don't know who sells that. I'm thinking it's one of the school suppliers, like maybe SNS Recreation. That's a really nice one, and all of them are going to be not light fast. All of those dye-based watercolors will be Fugitive, but any of those ink filled, like any of these, like Jane Davenport markers, Altenew, any of those are going to be Fugitive as well. So, but they won't clog when you have a dye base one in there. I got to split this ice cube up because that's too big of a weird shape. So this is negative painting here. We're going around our ice cubes. Lean's wondering the name of this. Oh gosh, I'm gonna hold it and maybe the camera will focus on it, because I'm telling you, metallic writing on small metallic writing on a barrel, Fumu or something. I linked to it in the video description. Yeah, I have such a hard time reading metallic writing on things. You can go a little bit more intense with your color at the bottom, like right above the clear glass, and that will give us a nice contrast. Like, so like kind of under the ice cubes, you can add another layer. Just be careful about like beads of water on your brush. I've caught a few of them, and that can be for any brush. It's not indicative of the bristles, just any brush can bring those beads of water in. Claudia is wondering if I am doing this for my imagination. No, I've got a reference photo. It's linked in the video description. I am kind of like doing my own thing to it, but I do have a reference photo that you can download. There's another question. Could you use a wax resist to draw out the ice cubes to save the white space? Yes, you could use a wax resist. However, then you're not going to be able to put any bubbles or condensation or anything over that, because you're going to have made a resist, and it won't let you put any watercolor over it afterwards. So, and you might get a bit of more grain because you'll get the grain of the paper, and you might not care for that look. It's completely up to you though. Just depends on what you want to do. Now I want to get some of that red in the thick glass, kind of like a streak of it here and there. So I'm going to start over here. I'm actually going to turn my work. And just drag up a couple streaks. I do it on the other side too, so I'm going to turn my work again. I have an easier time if I'm like putting I'm getting the tip of my brush pointing away from me, or to my left because I'm right-handed. We can get a little bit more round on the bottom of that glass. All right, I want a little bit more red up here, reflecting in the edge of the glass. And even though I don't see this in the reference, I just need a little something to bring that edge of the glass apart. And I'm going to streak some of that color down. Rhonda asks what my favorite travel brush set is. It is the Cheap Joe's Pseudo Sable. They have a 4-brush set, but honestly, all you need is a number 12 round because it has such a sharp point on it. All you can do everything the number 2, 4, and 8 will do, with the 4, 6, and 8, whatever the other sizes are. See, I don't even know the other sizes because I have the set, but I'm always using the 12. And I'm sure I've missed some questions, so I'll try to catch up in a few minutes. Now I want to make a dark gray. Again, I'm going to use the Cobalt Blue because I've already used that. And I'm going to use the Burnt Sienna. I'm a little heavier on the blue tone so I have a cooler color. I don't want it muddy. And I'm going to get some of this here at the bottom of where the glass and the liquid meet, where the thick bottom of the glass meets. I'm not going to go all the way. I'm just going to kind of pull and lift so I get a smooth stroke. On the edge there. I think one of the keys with painting glass is just getting those little slices of reflections and refractions, and a lot of times it's just kind of like a really bold swipe of color, and that's what gives you that shiny effect. And I think I want a little bit of that there. I'm just going to streak a little bit down there on the edge. And the neat thing is you really can even see the pencil drawing at this point. Oh yeah, I think I want to go a little bit darker. Here at the bottom. And I can also mix that with some of the red. Actually, let's go ahead and get some fresh because it's a little too diluted on there. So I've got the red, the blue, and the brown. And I can add a little bit of that to the bottom of my cranberries if I want to have a little definition. And a little bit to the cranberries in the glass if I want. Not too much though. Okay. I think I'm going to add a little bit of shadow under the glass. I'm going to just go in first with water. I'm going to go right over my I'm going to go right over I'm not going to go over the cranberries, but I'm going to go over my spatters. And I'm going to mix up some more gray. So it is the cobalt and the brown. Somebody asked if I was a messy cook and leave splashes all over the kitchen. No, but my daughter Maisie does. I try to clean as I go, but I never quite allow myself enough time. So I'm usually kind of like frantic and trying to, I've got dishes in the sink, so I'm trying to wash the dishes that were just kind of like hanging out all day, and I've got, you know, stuff on the stove. I made fried rice last night, and man, for a one pot meal, I made such a mess in the kitchen. I'm just gonna go in with a wet brush, just help guide that down a little bit. Now I'm also gonna do a little of that under the cranberries, just go in with a little bit of water to help give yourself a blending runway, basically, and then just add a little bit of that gray mix and just let it float out. It's very subjective, like how much detail you want to put in. That's completely up to you. Now I do feel like I want a little bit more color over the ice cubes, because I'm going to need to have a little bit of contrast when I go to put my little bubbles or water droplets, whatever I end up wanting to put there. So I'm just kind of toning down the white in the ice cube a little bit, so there's a little bit more liquid in front. And I think I might actually do a few just little bubbles floating. I mean, the spatter can kind of give that impression, but I think I'll actually just kind of grab a little bit of grayish tone, a grayish purpley tone here. I'm going to try this brush here. You could switch to the smaller one. This is the number 8. I'm just going to get the water off the ferrule because I don't want to have a big sploosh. I'm going to turn it so I don't lay my hand down in it. And any place you see a bubble that would make a good, you see a splash that would make a good bubble, you can outline it. That would be a good one there. And you can fill in however you like. I think doing the yellow ones make good bubbles because it makes more sense that they would be catching that pineapple color. And maybe this is a drink that's got champagne in it, and champagne is kind of yellowy. And then it kind of makes those spatters look like they could be fizzy bubbles. I really want to rest my hand on that, but I'm not going to do it because I will regret it. This reminds me of, like, do you guys ever, I can't remember what, I don't know, it was in the movie Dumbo maybe, the pink elephants. This is what it reminds me of. Pink elephants on parade. I think that was Dumbo. Either that or that one with the Mickey Mouse was the sorcerer one. Fantasia. I think it was Dumbo though, with the pink elephants. I'm not up on my Disney. Oh, I like that. I think that's really kind of cool. Thank you for the bubble idea. My ability to draw circles declines throughout the day, I realize. I should use my little circle template. I had that out because I was doing a bunch of blending circles with my pencil review. All right, so now what I think I'll do is get some really kind of weak colors on my palette. Get a clean brush, actually. I'm going to clean up a space. All right, it was in Dumbo, okay. Yeah, that's a traumatic movie. Making kids watch Dumbo. I don't think I ever showed it to my kids. All right, so I want some nice pure colors. I'm going to do the cobalt blue. I'm going to do a little mauve. You don't need much. I'm going to do a little bit of yellow, red, And I think I'll do some of the sap green. That's actually, I got some over there I can use. All right, what I'm going to do is just kind of like give a little like a little kind of C shape in the bubble. But I'm going to alternate colors. I'm just going to, some of them will have a little bit of a blue. And it doesn't have to be on the same side because bubbles refract just like glass. Let's give it a little bit of sparkle. Oops, I'm going to use that brighter red. Just really watery, just kind of give it a little bit of a, give it a little punch of color there. You can put several, you can, not several, but maybe 2 colors in one if you want to. Just, if they're opposites, try not to let them touch. And then you'll get that nice little, like, iridescent look. Oh my gosh, you guys are talking about Winnie the Pooh and everything. I've gone you down, you've gone down the Disney rabbit hole. All right. Okay, so now let's do some bubbles on the glass, or this can be, I'm actually going to zoom into my photo real quick because I think it's condensation that I'm seeing. Yes, I'm seeing some condensation. I love condensation and dewdrops. So I think I'm just going to go right ahead, take some of the mix, we'll do our mauve, our red, and some of that gray that we made. Use a small brush. And we're going to draw some bubbly shapes. And this will be condensation. So they don't have to be perfectly round. They can be kind of amoeba-like shapes. Can you see that okay? Should I zoom in a little bit? I'm just afraid if I zoom in, I will get out of frame. I think that will probably, I don't know. I can zoom in a little bit, I think. Oh gosh, I'm touching the camera. It doesn't like that. There, I think we're, all right. I'm just going to try not to move it but I want you to be able to see some detail. I'm just doing the outline right now, and I'll show you how to do the shadows and highlights in a minute. Make sure that your background is dry, or the area you're painting over is dry, or you're going to get feathered edges, and then you won't have that crisp condensation look. Some up here, and we'll get some pretty green in our drops. Or maybe it was just a really sloppy bartender who got the cup all wet. I wouldn't complain. If somebody wants to serve me a drink that looks like this, I'd be fine. I don't care about bubbles on the side. At least I wouldn't care after I finished what was in the glass. Yeah, I think it might have been like just wetness on the glass, because the bubbles are going all the way up on the reference photo. And I kind of like it, so. You could have you can have ones going over the edge too, and they would go out from the shape. So if I put one over here, it would go out. You know, it would pop off the edge, which looks kind of cool, especially if you have a boo-boo and you've got like you know, you got a little splash or a little wiggly line that you didn't like, then that's a perfect spot for a condensation drop. And have one go down over the edge at the bottom of the glass too. All right, I think that's, well, maybe a couple up here. I never know when to say when. I always go like one step too far, and then I'm like, okay, it should be done now. And I'm going to carry that kind of outline up into some of these bubbles as well. I also thought it would be cool to do, for effervescence, to do like a potion bottle, like a beaker with like bubbles coming out of it. I thought that would be fun too. But hey, only so many hours in the day. Somebody's drinking water and says, this looks better. And Monica just got here. Hello, Monica. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so now we're going to get some color. So in the areas here, the bubbles that are below the water line, we're going to use that same color, that just without the gray though. What we want is just the red and the mauve. Okay, and this actually would be really handy to have two brushes. So have a clean brush handy. I'll just make sure both of mine are clean. One's for blending, one's for painting. This is called the British two brush method. Make sure you don't have water on the ferrule of your brush. I'm just going to peek in my camera, make sure that, yes, we're still in the frame, okay? And then the other brush, the littler brush, is what I'm going to use for the paint. So I'm going to pick up my paint with a littler brush. And then we're just going to work on the bubbles that are below the water line. And we're going to put a dark stripe on the top of the drop and then under the drop. Okay, so the drop is refracting the light. So now I'm going with my damp brush and I'm just going to blend it. You want a rag handy too, so you can blow out your brush if you need to. I'm going to blend it below. I think I got a little too much paint on my brush that time, but that's all right. No, don't try lifting it out. You're fine. A little bit. So next time we'll go a little bit lighter. And if your blending brush gets too much paint in it, just rinse it and start again. It shouldn't be that big of a deal because that's a color you have underneath, so you just have more of it. We're doing the color on the inside top curve. You could actually do a couple at once if you want. And then you're doing some color underneath it. And then you're going to blend. Wipe your brush on a rag if you need to. A little bit more underneath that guy. And it will look really, it'll look really good when we add a white highlight, which you can do if you don't want to do a pen because you want to keep it a traditional watercolor and you don't want to have any mixed media. You could use an X-Acto knife and just kind of scrape out that top layer of paper, but I honestly would just prefer to use a white pen. I used to be a watercolor purist because that's the way I was trained, but then I realized that I don't want to be confined by the rules, but there's nothing wrong with that. Do however you want to do it. I'm going to go back in on that first one that I did and give it a little more contrast because I feel like I got it too blended out. I'm really enjoying World Watercolor Month. I love having a challenge going. Let me see if I can do a couple of these at a time. But don't feel like you have to rush. If you're following along, don't feel like you have to rush and go as fast as I'm going. In fact, it's kind of fun if you watch it all the way through and then you can watch it back while you're painting and pause as you need to. Because that way you can anticipate what's coming. And you can also, if you're watching it live, you can enjoy the visiting with friends in the chat. These highlights and shadows give it the that almost like little well, it gives it that bubbly look. Just want to go through and get all of the ones with the red in them, and then we can go into another color. I'm not going to put on the highlights till I have everything done here. All right, so then we need a gray, like in the areas where we don't have a lot of color around, we're going to be doing gray. I'm just going to look again on my camera to make sure the whole glass, the whole glass is in there. It is, good. Okay, so cobalt blue and cobalt blue and burnt sienna is what we're using for our gray today. Do the same thing. Make sure your blending brush is clean. Otherwise, you're going to be smearing red everywhere. I think this looks refreshing too. I think this looks delicious. If anybody wants to post a recipe, let me know. And if you want to throw any of these colors in your bubbles outside of the glass, you can do that too. And let's blend out those grays. Now the cobalt blue mixture, that's not going to stain as easily, so you actually have a little more time to work on those. Whereas reds tend to stain a little bit quicker. Anything with a quinacridone, I think that's probably a quinacridone based crimson. That's generally what they've done when they've redone the crimson, so they're light fast. And if you want to throw any of that gray anywhere else, feel free. Like right there, I'm feeling like I don't have a very good edge. I'm actually going to grab some of that blue. Like I feel like I've lost my edge there. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Oh, you know what would be fun? Let's put like a drop on the ground. Let's see, let's make some more of that gray. A little on the blue side. Let me make sure that's in frame. Yep, we're in frame, I think. I'm gonna put like just a couple little drops on the ground. And same deal, we're going to go in, we're going to add the shadow below. And then we'll add our shadow on the inside of our drop. Our bright highlight's going to go over that top shadow. That's why we need that contrast. I know it probably looks weird. You're like, why are you putting a shadow in there, Lindsay? That doesn't make sense. It will. People have arrived home. My teenagers all have jobs now. So that's been good. They enjoy that, you know, that grown-upness. All right, oh, I like that little, I don't know, that might be a little too decorative, but I think it's kind of cute. I like it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in the chat for any questions. So if you have them, post them. I am going to scroll back a bit, and if I miss you, then just repost it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit to make sure that that is sorry for the motion sickness. To make sure that's all in screen. All right, let's go see what are you guys chatting about. Now I'm nosy. I'm so nosy. I gotta see what you're talking about. Oh boy, let's see. I don't know how far back. Let's see. Jules asks, do you find using the heat tool for drying changes how the watercolor looks? It does when I am using granulating colors and I really want that granulation. Other than that, it really doesn't. I guess if you had it really hot and there was some sort of binder that didn't agree with the heat, like maybe a dextrose binder, you might get a little bit of a yellowing or something, but I haven't found that to be the case. And you can always hold it back so you're not getting so much heat there. But the only real difference I see is if I'm using, like I'm doing a wet wash and I want granulation, when I use the heat tool to speed it up, I lose some of that granulation because it needs time for the paint pigment particles to settle out. Let's see if I've missed any before that. Oh, Gwen got the 120 Brute Fooner square pencils. The squares are the way to go, guys. I just finished reviewing the 520 rounds, and I really think that they're not the same as the squares. The squares are much better. And they're good price, too. Sorry for the dead air. Just scrolling through and making sure I didn't miss anybody's question. Okay, Emma asks, Lindsay, outside of these prompted challenges, how do you keep finding inspiration to paint? Is it subject matter? I love your channel. Hi from Australia. Oh, hello. Thanks for tuning in. Gosh, it must be like middle of the night in Australia. I don't know. Maybe it's the morning. I'm not sure. Well, whatever time of day it is, I hope you're having a good one. I love the challenges, but honestly, I just try to keep, if I think of an idea, then I just jot it down. And then there's also like different reference photo sites like Unsplash and Pixabay. But I like Unsplash because you can organize different things you see into ideas. Like if I know I want to, like when I wanted to paint this the fishing float, I know I needed sand, I needed a beachy background, I needed beach grass. So I just put all kinds of pictures that I think that would go with this fishing float painting I wanted to do in one folder. So I could go through and I could pick out the grass and the sand and the textures and get all those things. So when I want to put my picture together, then I have a bunch of things ready to go. Sometimes I just search, I'll just surf through Unsplash for images and I'll put them in different folders. And then when I have time to paint, I'll look through the things I've already picked out and see if there's anything that can spark an idea. I also like to paint from things like objects in real life. I tend to like to do still lifes. So that works, so like if I see a cute little dish or something like that, a marble or whatever, I will kind of save it and I'll put it in my studio and I'll paint from it the next time I get a chance. Craig to Bless wonders, what is fugitive? Fugitive means it fades, or technically fugitive means what runs away. So it's like your color runs away, it fades on you. It's a fugitive. It's on the run. It's on the run. See, original alizarin crimson. It's on the run. You're never gonna see it again after 30 days in the sun. Mama Veal asks, does Arches sell this notebook? No, my friend Rosie made this for me. She does not have an Etsy shop or anything. She just makes them for her friends. But it's made from 140-pound Arches rough watercolor paper. Okay, I think that I just need to go a little. Oh, and actually somebody already answered that. Boy, you guys are on the ball. Let's see. And we're really going to finish up after this. Hopefully this isn't boring the replay, folks. I used to be a radio announcer and dead air would just horrify me. I would have nightmares. I would wake up and it would be like the song would have stopped and I don't know, I would have like stepped out of the room or something and there'd be dead air and I'd be worried I was going to get fired. Okay, question. Does your friend need another friend? Oh, oh my gosh, that's so funny. I think Rosie needs to sell these sketchbooks. It was so nice. I love them. Okay. Oh, one other thing I wanted to add to that, I want to add a little bit of a definition line on top of the water line here. So I'm with a steady hand, and make sure there's no water on your ferrule. I'm going to just very gently, with the tip of that brush, just draw kind of think of where like the ice cube might be pressing the stuff to the edge of the glass. And I'm just putting that in there. And I'll drag a little bit down here and there. I'll want to double that up with a little bit of white as well. So I just want to get a little bit of color bleed down. And if you're worried about like you not being imaginative enough or not knowing what to do, you know, on your painting, like how do you know what to add this or add that? How do you know how to change it from the reference photo? It comes with practice, and the more you paint, the more you're going to develop that intuition about your painting. So, you know, don't worry if you don't have that yet, it'll come. Add a little bit of red kind of being cast from the glass as well. Like generally light comes through glass. If there's like liquid in there, it'll cast a little bit of a color as well as shadow. Question, piece of pineapple on the table. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Rhonda, that's an excellent idea. Maybe I'll put a piece of pineapple over there. Yeah, let's do that. I am going to sketch it in just because I feel like it might need a little bit of a... Yeah, I like that idea. That's good. I'm going to have to credit all you guys when I post my World Watercolor Month photo today. With friends from YouTube chat. All right, I'm going to add a little smidgen of green in there. I'm going to do a little shadow underneath. I think I'll do a little water to help it flow first. I don't care if these blend together a little bit because it's not focal point. It's in the background. And balance it with some yellow splashes over there. And something yellow over there too. Maybe a little yellow. Oh, maybe a little yellow in that dewdrop even. Maybe a little yellow in there. It's all about balance and getting those, getting that balance around right. Let's see, I can't remember. I don't think I used yellow ochre. I think I used the burnt sienna in yellow for that so long ago. Just don't want to look like a piece of cheese. Question, how do you tint white masking fluid? Joy asks. I buy tinted masking fluid, but I guess you could put a little, you could put some watercolor in it. I would make as you need it. I would say I would just buy tinted. I buy the yellow Winsor & Newton. That's the only masking fluid I've really found to like last and not kind of chunk up in the container on me. I'm gonna blot that real quick. Okay, I am gonna blast this really quickly with the heat tool just so that when I use my white pen it doesn't skip. And I'll take a peek at the questions too. Yes, MJP, the 24 color set is a great price, $29. Make sure you check the coupon if you're buying it on Amazon, otherwise you'll miss out on getting that extra $10 off. Deb's asking, can you add white breaching out of the effervescent bubbles at the top? I'm going to go in with the white pen. I was going to add some white reflections. Is that what you mean? Melissa Aldosari asks, I got the Paul Rubens 48 pan set and also a set of tubes through your link on Prime Day. I think you've said the tubes are not as good. The student grade tubes are not as good. The artist grade tubes are fantastic. I think the artist grade tubes are better than their artist grade pans, but their student grade tubes are not very good. And I'm sad that they offer them because they have a student grade pan set they have two student grade pan sets that are wonderful. Their student grade tubes, I feel, just kind of missed the mark. What do you think of that 48 set? I didn't get it. I waited too long and they were out of stock by the time I got around to placing my order. They have some nice colors in there. I think I have a lot of those from the artist grade tube set that I have that I really like. All right, so now what I'm going to do is add highlights on the bubbles, and I think I'll add some on the pineapple too. This pen here is that Pagos watercolor set that I reviewed. It was probably like a month or two ago. And it's a really nice white gel pen. Okay, so what I like to do, I'll do it on the big one so you can really see. I'm going to do you could do a dot and a line, and then you can do a couple dots on the bottom. I feel like that really gives it that nice glossy look. You don't even really need the dots on the bottom if you don't want to. The one on the top is really the most important. But just make sure if you're going to do a line that you follow the contours. You don't want to do a straight line. If you're going to do a line, you've got to follow that curve, whatever the curve may be. I love highlights, so I tend to go a little overboard sometimes. They're not going to be as strong on your lighter objects because you don't have the contrast. That makes me happy. If it's too bright, just touch it gently with your finger, and you can remove it. I like to put little slices of light in the glass areas because in the darker areas, because it really has a lot of contrast and makes it look nice and sparkly. I'm just debating where I want to put more highlights. Now here, I feel like this is way too dark, so I want to break that up with a line. Now everything should be pretty dry. Even so, just give your gel pen a second to dry before you go in and do anything. I'm going to start in with a little bit of a line. Hopefully not, so I'm just going to peek at my camera, make sure we're in frame. Okay. And I'm going to just pull down some shape here, some of this white. Anytime you have too much of a dark area, great place for a highlight. That'll work really well. And you can even reshape areas. Now I can do a little bit of just a little bit of a highlight where the glass is touching the edge of the water line. And it just gives you that little bit of a sparkle. Our little cranberries can have some little highlights on them. Just make some nice and juicy looking. All right, I'm just going to turn this around to do the bubbles. So when I do this, I'm just going to make sure that I keep the highlights on the right side. I'm going to turn it this way so I don't push off camera. And it's going to be hard to see the highlights unless, oh, that one looks like a smiley face. That's going to bug me. I'm going to make that not be a smiley face. Well, pink elephants, I guess we could have smiley faces. Oh, we got some up here that I missed. I can just do some little circles too. Maybe that's what Deb meant about the white. Or maybe I'm missing, I might be just clueless and missing some joke, which is totally possible. Your little bubble splashes. Oh, I think this is fun. I like it. I think it's cute. The little pineapple needs a little bit more fibriness in it. Mix a little bit more, I think. What colors did we use? Let's think about that. What colors did we use? We used crimson. We used, and I'm just calling them common names in case they use a different name. Using crimson, I'm using lemon yellow, could be Hansa yellow light, burnt sienna, sap green, cobalt blue. Is that all? Is that all we used? I think it might be. Mauve, we use mauve. Or mauve. But, oh, you know what? I forgot the highlights on those guys. That's going to be, get those in there. Nice. That's satisfying. There. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I think that pretty much does it. I'm going to take another gander at the chat, see if anybody has any questions. And if you folks are just watching the replay, I hope I didn't have that off the screen when I was doing those bubbles. Basically, I was just putting dots in there. Good grief. Rusty. Can't take me anywhere. I'm just going to start at the bottom and scroll upwards and see if there's any questions. Oh, I am not caught up. Here we go. I'm just going to try to scooch over here so I don't have my arm over the thing in case you're trying to follow along. Oh, Rose said she did a full page of drops in her sketchbook. That's a great idea. That's great practice. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat right now. Use the word question in all caps so that I will see it. And I'm just doing a final check here. Oh, Recovering Soul says, when I think there's no way I can paint that, if I follow Lindsay's tutorials, it actually turns out better than I thought it would. Oh, thank you so much. Annette says a phosphorescent Paul Rubens set is on the wish list. That's great. I can show you a couple of paintings I did with a phosphorescent set. That is wonderful. They had the one in the blue tin on sale, like $10 off last week, but the pink tin wasn't. But I'm going to show you some of the other World Watercolor ones I did with that. I really love how that rope came out. Let me just, hopefully that's, the rope. I did this perfume bottle with a phosphorescent set. I'm not sure if in my lights here if it will show, but can you see it's a very subtle sparkle. I don't know why they call it phosphorescent. I did Jack's graduation tassel. I don't know if that's the sparkle's going to show, but I did a wing nut for the prompt wing. I should say what the prompts are. They're all on my Instagram page if you're curious. Zipper. That was for the prompt hush, because I always think like I remember teachers telling me to hush up, and I always just think zip it, zip it, Lindsay. And that one was actually done with one of those fan palettes, the artsy fan palettes. I think that's it for this phosphorescent ones, but that's a fantastic palette, super transparent except for that little hint of glitter. Love it. Ooh, Melissa got the phosphorescent set. Isn't it nice? It's so pretty. I don't have it on video very often because it's at my fun art desk upstairs. I take it out on the deck all the time and paint. Oh, Jewel is happy with her 48 Paul Rubens set. Nice. Oh, and Kimberly Crick said 40 or light fast. I love her channel. Kimberly Crick, if you're ever wondering about watercolor reviews, she's a great resource. See if she has a review on something you're considering buying. Orchid Blue 24 asks, have you done a video on how to get a pastel look with colored pencils? I'm having problems. Would Holbein pastels be the pastel pencils be the answer? Probably if you're having trouble, you may be having a problem not having enough contrast, or maybe not. If you work on a toned paper, pastel toned pencils can work well. I've got to say that I would honestly recommend the Prismacolor. Get the pastel range from Prismacolor. They don't sell a set of pastels, but you can open stock buy them for like $1.30 a pencil at Blick. Or if you have the full set of Prismacolors already, just root through and pick out your pastel colors because they're so soft and opaque. I actually prefer them to the Holbein. I only have a few of the pastel tones that were in the 36 set, but I actually prefer the Prismacolor ones, and they have a beautiful range of pastels, and they're so much cheaper. So versus like what the Holbeins are like $3 or $4 a pencil, and Prismacolors are between 1 and 2 depending on where you buy them. That would be my recommendation. And but you still have to, when you're doing pastel artwork, you still have to have some contrast. So if you're just using those pastel pencils, it's not going to be very effective. You need to have some darks and some highlights. So without the shadows, the pastels aren't really going to look pastel. They're just going to be kind of blah. So just make sure that you're getting a full range of your shadows. All right, I think I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom, see if anything new has been added. And if I missed you, I apologize. I always get kind of behind. Let's see. Lean B says, "What are the ingredients you use to refill ink pads, and especially what ratio, please?" I have a couple videos on refilling ink pads, but pigment inks, I don't really have a specific ratio, but it's generally like a dab of gouache with a couple drops of glycerin and a spritz of water if needed, and I work it into a pad with like a credit card. And for dye-based reinkers, like dye-based pads, I honestly will try to buy a dye-based reinker and get as close as I can, either Stampin' Up! Brand or Memento, because I find it difficult to replicate the dye-based inks without them getting too watery and weak and blotchy. So I do splash out for those, but they last forever. Ian Jackson asks, "Lindsay, can I recommend a great watercolor book I'm reading?" Oh, of course, Ian. Go ahead and list it. Absolutely, anytime. Anytime. I trust you guys not to spam the group. I trust all of you. I know if you're sharing something that you love, you're doing it out of the best intentions, and you're doing it with a honest heart. So absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I think I'm caught up. And if I did miss your question, just go ahead and pop it in the comments below the video and I will get back to you. I will look for those tonight. And thank you so much for painting with me. I had a great time, and I hope you did too. So happy World Watercolor Month, and we'll see you on the next impromptu live stream. Now you should all just go away now, because now I'm going to try to stop the live stream. So there'll probably be a couple minutes of very awkward Lindsay-ness that probably nobody needs to see. Because I can never remember how to stop these things. What do I do? I don't know what to do. Oh boy. Whoops.